What are some ways that women can increase their bone density?
Jumping rope or doing a class that requires you to do a little bit of jumping is a great, like putting a little bit of load on that. And then anything that stimulates your muscle stimulates your bone. It's like pulling, when you flex your muscle and you're like holding a weight, it's pulling on that bone and stimulating those osteoblasts, which can be harder as you get into older age. And so you want to do things that really are load bearing, weight bearing exercises. So weight training, jump training, and then weighted vests, great way to kind of, if you're at home and you don't want to go to the gym, that is a great way for you to get a home workout, is like put on a weighted vest or a rucksack and then do a few lunges, squats, and that can be a really easy way to do that.
Dr. Amy Shah, I'm really excited to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is a conversation that we've been trying to have in this studio for a while.
Yes.
So I'm glad we made it happen. And you're here in LA for a few days and you went to Next Health yesterday.
Oh, Next Health was amazing. I mean, this is not an ad, but I'll tell you, we had an amazing time. Instead of going to a girls' spa day, it was like the amazing, like invigorating. We did hyperbaric, we did IVs, we did injections. Like everybody was so excited, and we did all these different things. And the girls told me at the end of it, they're like, "This was so much better than going to like a spa day, a typical girls' day." So we had a great time. Everyone was hydrated. Everyone felt good after, so it was great.
Yeah, it's kind of like the new spa experience.
Yeah.
Is, doing the wellness technologies and focusing in on your wellness for a little while.
And we all had fun picking our different concoctions that we wanted. And then we sat in we went in pairs in the hyperbaric.
Yes.
So it was fun.
You and I I'm so glad you came, and thank you. And I'm so glad you had a fun time.
Yeah,
and,
it was great.
you and I have had a long history.
Yes.
Because we met a long time ago at the Mind Body Green conference, where we were both just regular doctors out there doing our thing, looking for something different. Do you remember that?
Well, was that 2015 or
yes,
was it?
I think so,
Was
right?
it 2015? Something like that. It was like about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was like definitely pre-pandemic for sure.
Yes.
And we were there just trying to figure things out.
Yes.
And
We were, I remember, was it did you come to the second one too, or you only came to one?
I only came to one.
I think it maybe was 17. Anyways, I remember meeting you and we were both like, you're like, I'm still in practice. I was like, I'm still in practice. And we were just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. There was a conference kind of centered around functional medicine, which even back then was kind of a newer idea, right?
Wellness to me, when I went to that conference, I literally got goosebumps, Darshan, because I was like, oh my God, there are all these people and there's this world out there that I never knew about. That is what I love to talk about, like what I like to research and what I like to think about. And so I knew that there was something there, but I just didn't know what it was at the time. That was
such like a vortex moment, you know, because Dr. Mark Hyman was there too, speaking. And there were very few doctors in that conversation, right? I think you and I and maybe a couple of others were the only ones out of 100 plus people. And I was like, why are doctors not talking about all of these things in our day-to-day practice?
It seems so crazy because now you see there's tons of I mean, hundreds, thousands of doctors that are online speaking about this. But at that time, it was really rare. The whole wellness world was dominated by brands, by people in the peripheral wellness world, but not physicians.
A lot of supplements, a lot of people trying to...
Bloggers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, bloggers. There wasn't even a lot of social media back then.
Yes. So the way I got invited to that conference was so crazy. I was just writing blogs for free to Mind Body Green. And I needed a way to kind of like keep my nutrition, gut health, women's health, like that part of my brain alive. And I felt like I wasn't really using it much in my private practice. And so I would just send blog posts like once a week and just work on them in my downtime. Wow. And that's how I got invited to that summit.
That's so amazing.
Is that fun?
Yeah, and since then, like both of us have kind of went on this journey creating, our different... You have a massive platform now. You've written many books.
You have a massive business.
Yeah, and it's really great because I really feel like the stuff we're talking about now is finally mainstream conversation versus before. Everyone was like, what the heck are you talking about?
Exactly. I think it's great that it's become so front and center. But I still think that there's so many areas that people need clarity on. I think that's why it's good for us to have conversations like this because people may not understand from a sound bite. They might need a further explanation.
Yes, I can't wait to dive in with you on those three topics: gut health, nutrition, and women's health.
Yeah.
And so why don't I start off with a few questions?
Cool.
Let's first talk about gut health. What is the one thing that you wish everyone knew about their gut health?
Oh, it's that it's connected to your brain. So I think one thing that people don't understand is not just digestive. Because, it's great to have good digestion, but do you want to have a good mood? Do you want to be focused? Do you want clarity? Do you want good brain health for the long term? Your nervous system and your gut are completely connected.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an incredibly important point that I think really has just come out in the science in the last few years.
Yes.
This is a new discovery.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Before, we always knew that, when the developing embryo, the gut and the brain are kind of connected, and then they get separated as you grow, and you're connected by your spinal cord, like the nervous system. But we always just treated them as two different things. You go to a neurologist, or you go to a brain surgeon, or you go to a gastroenterologist. You don't really think that they're actually completely connected. So that's the area that I'm super interested in.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into that more. Regarding nutrition, what is one thought about nutrition that you've changed from maybe, practicing regular medicine to now your practice now?
The importance of fiber and probiotic foods is something I think we all know about protein already. Protein has been such front and center for the last couple of years, which is great. But in addition to that, fiber and probiotic foods is something that will kind of change the way you feel now, but also in the future.
Yeah, and those are two foods that I feel like are fully de-emphasized in the
It's not
everyday.
sexy. When you say fiber, they're like, what, Metamucil? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's like what you think of with fiber.
Right. And then on the topic of women's health, what have we got wrong in women's health over the last couple of decades?
I mean, obviously, the biggest thing that we've gotten wrong is that we haven't studied it.
Yeah.
So women were not even included in our lifetime when we were in med school. Women were finally mandated. I think it was only in the late 90s that people were mandated to include women in medical studies, which is crazy. Like we have hundreds of years of medical studies that excluded women.
That's crazy.
So I think the biggest conversation around women's health is like I'm glad we're talking about it, but let's also study it.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a valid point too, because when you look at the studies that are now done with women, the data is actually different.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, so many things are different. Of course, fundamentally, we are very similar. Right. So people will say like, oh, it's overemphasized. Like, you're like calories, the same, it works the same with men and women. But the big difference that throws everything into the mix is the hormonal kind of cycles, the infradian rhythm, the 28 to 32-day cycle that women have. I think that really gives a lot of different nuances to everything we do, including medications, supplements, what we eat, how we live, this cold plunge thing, the sauna. Women are just different because we have this other rhythm on top of our circadian rhythm.
Right. Oh, that's such a valid point too. Yeah, there's multiple rhythms involved. And men don't have that other rhythm. And so it can definitely, all these interventions can have different biological effects depending on where you are in that rhythm.
Right. And we always talk about, we don't talk enough about circadian rhythms.
Right.
I think everyone is kind of screwed up with their circadian rhythms living in the modern world. Like we're not getting enough daylight. We're not getting enough darkness. We're not getting enough sleep. We're not getting enough nature time. And then you throw on top of that all of these hormone disruptors in our life, including food and products. So you end up messing up both your circadian rhythm and your infradian rhythm. And basically everybody says like, oh, my hormones are off balance or I feel like crap.
Yeah. And you're saying that this hormonal disturbances are due to circadian rhythm abnormalities, but also toxins that we're exposed to, like endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Yes. And food, ultra processed foods. So the problem is that our gut is really connected to our hormones as well. So there's this gut hormone connection that most people don't even think about.
Yeah.
And it's like what you're eating and what you're ingesting through toxins in your personal care products, but also toxins in your food. And all of that is disrupting that microbiome, which helps metabolize estrogen, which helps, balance your hormones. So it's like this we live in this modern world where there's multiple reasons that our hormones are not able to work at optimal levels. And so even when you just fix one or two of those things, you're going to notice a huge difference in your health.
How do you, like, when you see a patient, how do you figure out if they have an hormonal abnormality or something's disrupted with their hormonal signaling?
I know, that's such a great question because as you know, it's very hard to test for hormones.
Yes.
And in fact, most people, at least in mainstream medicine, don't even recommend testing for hormones, especially unless there's something very, very wrong. But what I think is like teasing out what other things are happening. So a lot of people, they'll get the blood testing and there's all these things that they need to address. So their vitamin D is super low, and so you kind of start to tease out all these things. You start to fix it. But then what's kind of left and what fits with the profile of hormonal changes. So if it's happening every month around your period, you feel really bad PMS. So one of the signs that I knew I had hormonal imbalance because I was a busy mom and a physician and trying to do all these things. And we talked about off air, like my nervous system was completely out of whack. I was always in the to-do list in my brain. My adrenaline level was super high. And as a result, I noticed that every month my PMS was through the roof. So the week before, I would have terrible symptoms of fatigue and muscle aches and all that stuff, and then bad cramping when the period would start. So that was like a big red flag.
Yeah.
And then really having these overall symptoms of fatigue and GI issues and skin issues that weren't really improving, even though my labs looked like they were fine. And that, I think, to me, is the biggest sign. It's hard because, like, perimenopause, for example, is like a 7 to 10 year process. And, every woman I talk to, like this girls trip that I'm on right now, we talk about it all the time because everyone is in a different stage, part of it. But it's obvious. Once you're going through it, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. A lot of the women I talk to, either it's obvious or when you tell them, like, these are all symptoms of perimenopause and it becomes obvious. It's like, oh, that's why I'm feeling like crap right now. Right.
And I think it's so sad because my mom, she had a huge community. And, we talk all about having community and having family. And you ask her about menopause and she's like, nobody knew anything.
No one talked about it too.
It's like for thousands of years, she was like, yeah, they told me, to go to the doctor. I got these anxiety medications. I got this, separately, I was treated for carpal tunnel and separately I was treated, all these things that you look back and you're like, this was all part of your menopausal journey and nobody really put it together for you. And so she just thought, she was going crazy. Her heart was palpitating and all these things like that are now, you think of it as typical symptoms. And so now I think the biggest thing for us is talk about the symptoms, test to rule out everything else. So a lot of times you'll see, I know you see it, everybody has things that they can fix in their diet, in their labs, and then you kind of tackle the hormonal symptoms.
Yes. Yeah. That's such a great, I love that paradigm because you're right. Just because you're getting hormone tests done and they don't show like major abnormalities doesn't mean that that's still not a problem, right? Because everyone's hormone levels are different.
Yes.
And you get symptoms at different levels, right?
Yes.
And so you really got to go by some of the symptoms, especially in that perimenopause time period, and treat and optimize. But before that, try to get everything else fixed too, right? Like vitamin D levels, vitamin B levels, inflammation, all these other markers that we have. Trying to get all that optimized at the same time will help the hormonal symptoms too.
I always tell women, especially 35 plus, that start to change your diet and lifestyle. Because when you start to change your diet and lifestyle to kind of improve that, all of a sudden you're going to see things that you thought were separate issues start to get better. And that's how you really know that you're doing a good job fixing your hormones. So like I have this nutritional paradigm I call the 30-33.
Tell me about that.
So that's 30 grams of protein in the morning, first meal.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be in the morning, first meal. 30 grams of fiber throughout the day and 3 probiotic foods every day. And you can start with the first one. I always tell patients you can start with the first one, just getting 30 grams of protein in your first meal. Like whenever that first meal might be, it could be late breakfast, it can be early breakfast.
What does that look like, 30 grams of protein?
Yeah, so that could be like an egg scramble with veggies and
like
maybe
3
some
eggs.
3 eggs and then veggies and then like some cottage cheese on the side.
Got it.
And you got it. You could do a smoothie, really easy with a protein powder to get 25 to 30 grams just from that. You can do a yogurt or Greek yogurt. Perfect. Greek yogurt has like, I think like 15 grams of protein in a half cup. So you can add some nuts, berries. And so you can get at least half of your 30 grams right there. So there's lots of different ways. Tofu scramble for those that don't have eggs. I mean, tofu is an amazing source of protein. Those are all really, I don't love bars and shakes, but those are also easy, fast ways to do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on all that. And so 30 grams of protein, 30 grams of fiber throughout the day as well, right?
30 grams of fiber is hard. Because, our frappuccinos, our, typical processed foods have very little fiber.
Well,
and to get 30 grams is like you have to eat fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. And I sometimes supplement also with like inulin powder or like a few powders every once in a while because it's hard, to get vegetables at every meal sometimes, especially if you're on the go.
Enough vegetables. Travel kills me.
Kills me too, yeah. So I try to carry around some fiber powder as well, just to get some in every day.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I need to add that to my, that's like how many things are we going to pack in our bags?
I know. It gets a little bit crazy sometimes.
Like berries, I love berries because they pack a ton of fiber.
Right, they do.
In a very small amount. And then avocados are also a great, so when I'm traveling, I'm trying to get berries and avocados and leafy greens because those are things that I know are high in fiber. But yeah, it is tough unless you're actually thinking about it at every meal.
Right, exactly. And then the hardest one for me is those 3 probiotic foods.
So
what does that look like?
At home, it's easy because you could do kefir. Even the Greek yogurt that you were using as your protein, that counts, right? Yes. Probiotic cottage cheese counts. Kimchi, sauerkraut, raw apple cider vinegar, all of those things, easier at home.
Yes.
Much harder when you're traveling. Yes. And so getting kind of, if you are okay with fermented dairy, which I used to not be good with dairy, but as I've healed my gut, fermented dairy seems to be good. And for most people, there's even a study that says you can train your gut, with little amounts of kefir every day to kind of tolerate the fermented dairy.
Yes.
Doesn't need a lot of bacteria to ferment that.
Did your parents
lactose.
ever give you like buttermilk when you were a kid?
Yes. It's like that. So and whenever I go to Europe, I see all these fermented yogurt drinks everywhere, and it's such a great thing to have. So I think that it's definitely not something that's going to happen by default.
No.
You have to work
try.
at it.
Yeah, you definitely have to try.
But it's like game changers.
Right, game changer. But I think like the minute you start getting used to it and you start buying the yogurt, for example.
Yes.
And then when you open your fridge the next week and the yogurt's running low.
Yes.
Like, I got to get some more yogurt, or make more yogurt or something. It's like just getting into that mindset and that routine and habit. Then it just kind of becomes a self-perpetuating kind of routine, right?
So when I say it, my favorite, for example, if I have the perfect breakfast, it would be an egg scramble with veggies.
Right.
And then some berries and then probiotic cottage cheese. So in that one meal, you actually got the fiber, you got the probiotic foods, and then you got the protein. And so it starts your day off really well. And then it's just like you said, you kind of get used to having those foods in your life. Because I think if it's like hard to switch from like a bagel to that in the beginning. But once you do, it kind of becomes a habit.
That's such a good point. And like, I'm a big believer in getting your win in early in the day.
Yes.
And like getting that breakfast right, it's such an important meal for me because then I feel like I've won at least 30 grams of fiber and, at least I've won 40 grams of protein in the morning.
Yes.
Because the rest of the day doesn't go as well planned. At least I got that in the morning,
That's why I say the 30 in the morning, because everyone is really different about how much protein they want total, about how they want to spread it out. But I think there's so much data that shows that having that protein meal early in the day, not only does it help your blood sugars, but your cravings, and also habit-wise, it kind of sets you up for making better decisions for the rest of the day. It's the same like the data on early exercise. Like earlier in the day, not only does it have some circadian benefits, exercising earlier in the day, but it also is a habit. It's easier to do habits in the morning than it is. Your decision fatigue really kicks in later in the day.
Exactly. Yeah. Your decision fatigue kicks in. Things enter your life that you did not plan on. But the morning is a time to knock this stuff out. I totally agree with you.
I'm such a morning everything. Like I work better in the morning. I like to fit in every health activity in the morning. So it's really hard when we travel a lot that it's really disrupted, that morning routine.
Yeah. And now when I travel, I really try to keep my morning routine in place. It's hard, but I really try to at least get half of it done, at least, so I can say I won something, during the travel.
So true. I think you have to also plan accordingly. So I used to do edge to edge travel where I would just arrive right before the event and then I would leave right after. And now I realize no, I actually probably could use a good night's sleep the night before. Maybe a little bit of sunlight, movement, do a little bit of morning routine, have that breakfast, and then I start the day.
Exactly. No, that's such a good point, too. I think also it eliminates a lot of the stress when you go the night before to get there on time the next day.
Especially with flights these days. I have learned the hard way that you can't always think that everything's going to run on time. You can't be so edge to edge.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. On the nutrition front, are you a vegetarian or do you eat everything? Okay.
So I'm a lacto-ovo vegetarian.
Okay, got it.
Personally.
So I've have this conversation a lot because I do see a lot of vegetarian patients.
Okay.
And they always are concerned about getting in their protein during the day. Because, there's this dogma out there now in the social media sphere that you have to have 1 gram per pound of protein. How do you talk your patients through this?
So I think it depends on what your goals are. So if you are a woman, say in your 40s or 50s or even late 30s, and you're trying to actively build muscle and you're trying to push against that muscle loss, 1 to 3%, a year when you're really in late menopause. And so that group is a completely different group than someone who's maybe in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And also someone who's sedentary and also someone who's elderly. So I think depending on who you're talking to, if it is a woman in that age group, 35 to say 55 or 60, and they're really trying to actively build muscle and they've noticed, some perimenopausal symptoms kind of creeping in, those are the people I want them to be higher on the protein.
Sure. Yeah.
Those are the people that they need to get that 30 grams in the first meal and then hopefully in every meal, but then there's people that aren't as active. They're not actively lifting weights. They're, they don't necessarily have the same protein needs. Yeah. So there's a range, right? But I do think that the upper limit is that 1 gram per pound body weight. I think I've done that before and it's a full-time job for especially, but it's great if you're bodybuilding or you're trying to achieve a short-term goal. But I think for most people, that's kind of the upper limit. And then there's a range.
No, that's so well said because what I really try to talk to my patients about is look, I understand that that's what you're hearing and that's the recommendation, but you're an N of 1. You have to see what's going to work for your biology.
Yes.
So for me personally, I've been doing a DEXA scan every year now for 10 years. I've been building muscle mass every year for 10 years now.
Wow.
And I'm in my 50s now,
Amazing.
And so, but guess what? I don't get 200 grams of protein in a day.
It would be a full-time job for you.
Exactly. So now I weigh 185 and even trying to get 150 grams of protein a day is very difficult. So I think probably I'm around 120 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
And I've been building muscle every year now for many years. I also have a scale at home that I step on that is a bioimpedance scale that I love. It also tracks my skeletal muscle mass. And then when I go to the gym, I use an app to track the amount of weight I'm lifting. And I'm constantly either staying stable or building a little. And I think if you track...
What is the scale that you have at home?
I have a Renpho scale, RENPHO. I have no relationship with the company, but I found it to be super accurate and it's only $25.
Yeah.
And I actually have all my patients buy it because I'm this is great data for you to follow.
It's great data. I mean, we have one I don't know what brand it is, but I don't use it as often for those, like just usually use it as a simple scale. But I think that's really great to have.
Yeah, it really, really is. And I think that, I don't care what your weight is. I just want to know what direction your skeletal muscle mass is headed. That's the number one data point for me. And that's the only thing I actually look at for myself as well.
I think that's the biggest thing is like you need to track yourself. Like I think you said something about being N of 1. Yeah. And I think that is so important because you could have a range of protein, for example. Yeah. So you could eat between 150 and 200 grams. But as long as you're still making gains or you're still improving something about your body, that's enough. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, there's this thought process that you need to be eating a ton of meat, you need to be eating a ton of, and get protein any way you can. And I think that's wrong. I don't think we need to have protein at all costs, like all this, like I could get 100 grams of protein a day in just bars, shakes, and supplements, but that's not necessarily healthy.
Right, exactly. Now you're exposing yourself to all this ultra-processed food and plastic wrapping. Right. And it's like, I think if you track yourself and you understand what your biology is doing, then you're doing it the right way, right? And instead of trying to aim for some general recommendation out there.
And crazy numbers. And I also think that what I notice is that when I eat protein that is unprocessed and early in the day, it kind of sets me up for better choices throughout the day.
Absolutely.
And so that's the biggest thing. And I think women, for example, definitely that DEXA scan is something that everyone should be getting so that we can track how you're improving. Yep. And most people don't get a DEXA scan as part of their regular female workup.
Yeah, it's so important. Back to the vegetarian point too, like to get that much protein in for a vegetarian, the number of calories you have to consume is pretty high. And I've seen some women that are vegetarians trying to get that amount of protein, and then they're gaining weight and they're gaining fat, and they're just so frustrated. Like, let's just rethink the protein recommendation right now. Yes. I try to educate them on what's the best way to get protein for vegetarians. Like you mentioned a few sources there. And let's just kind of like take a step back and just follow what direction you're headed in with less calories.
I love like things like edamame for women who are vegetarian or just patients who are vegetarian, because also that helps with the hormonal changes as they age. So but it's really hard. Like if you're eating a dal or you're eating chickpeas, peanut butter, like people think that's like protein, but that's really, you have to eat insane amount of calories to get the same amount of protein. So it's very hard. And then you have to supplement, like I said, with a ton of like supplement powders, and it becomes hard.
Yeah, it really does. And then the same kind of happens with fiber too, to be honest with you. Like, people are trying to eat a ton of fiber every day, and it's really difficult. And this is where I really do like fiber powders. Yeah. As long as it's good quality, you have to make sure that, there's no heavy metals in it. You have to look it up, make sure it's a good quality fiber powder.
Yeah, I think it's so hard with, like you said, in our food system right now, it's devoid of fiber, it's devoid of protein. So you kind of have to really make it your intentional to get all that stuff. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, especially like the probiotic foods. That is probably the hardest one for most people.
Yeah, it really is. I kind of give up on probiotic foods when I'm traveling. I just don't have it at home.
It's tough.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because if I'm going to New York or LA or Miami, easy. Yeah. Because there's stuff all the time. I don't know if you ever do this, but I'll Instacart to my room and get a few little things like
great idea.
Kefir, yogurt, probiotic cottage cheese, or a couple of like apples or like whatever. And that way, in between things, when I'm rushing, when I have something in my bag, that's what I'll reach for.
Great idea. And I love Instacart too, because it says, these are your products. Do you want to buy these?
Yeah.
And it's like right there.
And it delivers it to your hotel or wherever you're staying. Yeah. I said that to someone, they laughed at me, and I'm like, no shame in my game. Like, I love that. I love having all that stuff ready for me, when I'm traveling, especially if it's a couple of days. It's really nice to have that.
Yeah, for sure. And also, it can actually save you money, because a lot of times when you eat out at restaurants when you're traveling, it's like super expensive.
Right. And then most of the time when you come back to your room in between things or in the evening, you need some like a little snack, or you want something that's in the morning before you start everything. That's a great time for you to kind of have a couple of those things.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Just so we can touch on this too, I know this wasn't one of the topics we want to touch on, but what is your exercise recommendations for women that are in their perimenopause type of time period?
Number one is walking. I think that when you look at women's activity levels over the years, they tend to kind of dip in that, perimenopausal range. And people said, like, the researchers are not sure whether it's because you're more fatigued, whether it's because that is time of life where most women have lots of children and responsibilities and job, or is it that, you just tend to move less because of age, whatever it is. Everybody, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I think that people, like, when you're in your teens and your 20s, you're moving a lot. Not, I guess, in America nowadays, it's not as much, but you tend in your lifespan, you tend to be moving a lot more in those years. And so walking is just such an easy way to just be active. Our bodies were created to be active and to be outside and to be moving. And I think that sitting for 8 hours a day is like the worst thing we're doing for our health. So I would say 8 to 12,000 steps every single day. And you can get that indoors, outdoors combination, but some of it should be outdoors if possible on most days. And then 2 to 3 days minimum a week of resistance training. So something where you stimulate your bone and muscles. And that could be as easy as a push, a pull, and a total body day or something like that. And then there's got to be some kind of flexibility training. There's got to be either some kind of yoga, some kind of flexibility, maybe just stretching, but there's got to be some other element there. The biggest thing I think with exercise that we get wrong is I think we force everyone to do certain exercises. Like, we're just like, this is, things become trendy and that's what everyone is doing. I think exercise should be a lifelong thing that you enjoy. If you like hiking, some people don't like hiking. If you like dancing, some people don't like dancing. So it's like there's no wrong way to move. And the most important thing is to find the baseline movement that you love the most. For most people, default is like walking, nature walks, right? Some form of that. And then you can add on these other things, but forcing people to exercise for the sake of exercise and the fact, and you hate every second of it, like that should not be the norm.
Right. No, that's such a valid point. If you are getting forced to exercise and you're hating it, then the chances of that being sustainable are almost zero.
Yeah. Like if you're like counting I always check. I always know if I hate a workout class by the amount of times I check my watch or phone. Because if I'm like so bored or so annoyed that I'm like constantly checking when it's going to end or how much has passed, that's clearly a sign that like that's not something that's going to be the base of my training.
Yeah.
Now, like it took me a long time to do resistance training and to find the type of resistance training that I liked, because going into the gym and lifting weights was just like so foreign to me. But then over time, I found the one, like I said, like try all the different ways and then start to see like which one is it that you're starting to enjoy, like look forward to. That is the type of exercise that's right for you.
No, that's a really good point. One thing that we do here is we test all of our patients' grip strength.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a good proxy of upper body strength.
Yes.
And many women are actually really deficient in strength, I find, especially in the perimenopausal, postmenopausal time period. And I feel that, this is, number one, is a stark realization for many women. Number two, grip strength is very connected to longevity and overall health outcomes as well, right? And so
100%.
I just feel that I see a lot of women and men, but mainly women, that have low strength, like 25th percentile.
Yeah.
Do you see that as well?
Yeah. And I always talk, so, women should be able to hang from a bar for up to 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really hard thing for many women, especially in perimenopause. And so working up to that. So, hanging for 20, 30 seconds, hanging then for 40, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
Most women probably around the minute mark is the limit. Some people are really amazing and you're pushing yourself, but I think that doing kind of exercises to help with that. So I notice for me is that when I'm concentrating on improving grip strength, it improves. So like holding heavy weights and doing like farmer's carries, hanging from a bar, and really strengthening that part of your body. Because like you said, when you're 90 and 100, you're going to be losing your grip strength. But if you already started with some, then by the time you're 90 and 100, you will be able to open those jars. You'll be able to, get yourself off of a chair.
Right.
And you really need all of that.
That reminds me of the video you posted of your getting your mom up and down off of a chair.
Yes. The sit-to-stand test, right?
Test,
that is
right,
a great proxy.
Yes.
And I find that people, I've done the floor sit-to-stand test where you sit on the floor and get up. And then there's the chair sit-to-stand test, which is actually a well-studied test.
Yep.
And you see how many sits to stands you can get in 30 seconds.
Right.
It's a really great marker for like lower body strength, flexibility, balance, and that really translates for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a guide that I put on my website at drshah.com that is a collection of like 10 of these tests to test your upper body strength, core strength, lower body strength, your mobility, like upper body mobility, lower body mobility. And all of these tests that you mentioned are on this guide. And we do these tests on our patients, and it's so surprising. We also test balance with the one-legged stand test. And
Okay, so it's one-legged stand. It's sit to stand.
Yep.
It's hang.
No, we don't do a hang.
Okay.
We actually get a grip strength.
Okay, grip strength.
Yeah,
okay.
because I feel like that's a little bit easier for people to do.
Yes.
We're also doing like shoulder mobility, how far back you can reach as well.
Okay, yeah.
Then we do, sit to stand is another one of them. And so we get these like 10 markers on people, and it's surprising to a lot of people where they're deficient. But then we do it every year. What I've been finding doing it every year is people are super excited when something improves, but they're also surprised when something really slips.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to see women in perimenopause, men after the age of 50, they start slipping.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking in the mirror as I'm talking to you because I slipped on a couple of markers too. One of them was the number of push-ups you can do.
Okay.
Yep.
How many
squats in a
was
minute.
it like 12 push-ups for a woman, I think?
No, it's more than that. Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was
so.
like 12 at a time, and then you can take a break or something.
I'll have to check. I don't remember, but I have to check that. But yeah, so it's in there, and I don't think anyone really does these tests on themselves, right? And it's so important to understand where you stand on a scale of your general population, like your peers, if you're a woman or a man in your age group.
That's the thing. I think most of us are not really noticing the subtle signs of loss, of muscle loss and balance, and it kind of over time, if you think about it, it's declining. So what you have right now is going to be you're going to have a fraction of that when you're in your 80s and 90s. Yeah. So if you think about it that way, that's a lot more motivation to really keep up your muscle mass, your strength, your flexibility, your balance, so that you can kind of have that through the years.
Exactly. What I tell people is that you have to save up, you have to save up muscle mass, you have to save up balance, save up flexibility, because you are going to lose it as time goes on. It's just a natural course of life, right?
But that's why I love mixing up workouts.
Yes.
That's why I'm like, you can't just walk.
No.
You have to do some resistance training. You have to do some flexibility training. Like there's not, you can't just do, like for a while, I was just doing this type of power vinyasa yoga because I was really stressed and I couldn't.
Is that core power?
No, it's a local studio in Scottsdale. It's similar to core power, but a lot of arm balances, a lot of push-ups. And I thought that was enough, and I was not doing any cardio at all besides that. And what I realized is that it was giving me something, but it wasn't checking all the boxes, the 360 that you need.
Sure.
I wasn't walking enough. I wasn't active enough. I was never doing a sprint. I now force myself to do a sprint once a week at least.
Same.
And that is not something that I was getting if I was just doing the power yoga.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, I think doing some assessments on yourself also helps you understand like where you're deficient and you need to mix it up for sure.
Where do you, just out of curiosity, what are you working on? Like, what did you see that you were becoming more?
Flexibility. Yeah, my flexibility, I was losing it for sure. And that's concerning because I love traveling. And, you know, when you lose flexibility, you can't do all the movements that you want to do when you're traveling, right? And you have to be very flexible to, for example, put your carry-on bag up above you in the airplane, all of that, right?
I mean, I think that's one of the biggest strength checks for myself too, is like, am I able to take my, carry-on bag and put it up without someone saying like, hey, do you need help? You know, like, I think that is a good check. And I think for me also, something simple that people can do is like, just do like a 1-minute sprint. You can do like a 30-second sprint 8 times, that crazy eights.
Yep.
And I'll do that every once in a while. And like, you can kind of assess how you're doing because your heart rate, your level of fatigue really will change as you start to get fitter or lose it a little bit.
And another test on that guide is the Cooper's test, which is a test of your VO2 max. How fast can you run a mile?
Yes.
You know? And I think that's another thing that I'm always working on. And I feel like that you can lose too once you de-emphasize cardio a little bit too, right?
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, I think, the VO2 max testing is, I think, very, very important for people. But I think it's hard because most people don't have access to the true VO2 max testing. I think we talked about this because you have a way to test it at Next Health, right?
We do now, yes.
But
we use a mask and we put people on a little treadmill now. But it's hard for people because it's like, it's intimidating to have to like work out till you can't do it anymore. So that's why I like the Cooper's test because it's basically you run a mile, you see how fast you can run it, and that's your score, and it associates with VO2 max.
And there's like grading depending on your. But do you feel? I don't think Cooper's tests, from my understanding, because you're not fatiguing yourself to the max with Cooper's test. So you really should be running a mile after you've done a bunch of other workout. Maybe at the end of your workout would be a perfect time to do that. Because you want to be you want to kind of push them to the point they're fatigued, but you don't necessarily get that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's just a different way of approximating VO2 max, I think. And so I don't know if they have people fatigue until the very end, but it is a way of approximating it. I'll have to look more into that for sure.
Yeah, well, I think the thing I think about VO2 max is like, have you ever hiked Machu Picchu?
Yes.
So you've done
We talked about this.
Yeah,
you and I have talked about Machu Picchu.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And so you stayed overnight. Yeah.
Yes,
so like,
we did.
it's kind of like that feeling of like, are you able to still hike up that hill, even after you've done it, for a couple of days? That I think is a really great test for people or hiking Camelback in Scottsdale.
Yes,
great
another
test.
Favorite
That's
hike of
another test. If you have something that's really challenging for you, do that every once in a while to kind of keep yourself going.
Yeah. Did I tell you I was just in Scottsdale and I hiked Camelback?
Yeah,
Did I tell
that
you
was
about
the day I saw you.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
You had hiked that morning.
That morning. Yeah. Did I tell you about the woman I met that was?
No.
Yeah. So there's this 80-plus-year-old woman that been hiking Camelback every single day for 40-plus years. Yeah. And everyone knows her on the hike and they give her high fives, and she doesn't go all the way up anymore. Now she goes like a part way, but she's still doing it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's incredible.
It's so funny. My daughter is 15 now, but she sees a picture of herself when she was like 4 or 5 hiking Camelback. And she always says like, Camelback, whatever. I did that when I was like 4. I was like, that is a hard hike. It is pretty impossible to do as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like I think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, we like hiked that up really easily. It's a good proxy. You want to do that again to see if you can do it in the same time.
Yeah. It's an incredible hike. One of the things around hiking too that I try to do every single weekend is I go for a ruck, which I have a rucksack. And what I've read is that can really help you preserve mobility, balance, even strength until your old age, because it kind of combines all of those into one form of exercise.
Yeah, rucking is so great. I think the weighted vest is kind of a similar concept.
Yeah.
But the problem with the weighted vest, I think what women get wrong is that they wear the weighted vest just to do everyday activities, like walk, like a very, very mild walk, or like walk around the house. And what I realized looking at the data is that you actually need to be doing something, and that will add the load to it. So a hike or a squat or a push-up, or it'll add load to it. You can't just expect benefits from wearing it around and just like strolling in the neighborhood.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you actually want to be like wearing it during a workout.
Yeah. Or like you can do lunges, or you can do squats. Or I think this whole weighted vest trend is like making people think that they can just wear a weighted vest and go walk around the neighborhood and that counts, and that's going to increase their bone density, but that's not what the research says.
I see. Yeah, speaking of bone density, what are some ways that women can increase their bone density?
Yeah.
Or men. All the stuff that we talk about women applies to men too. But
jumping, I love the data on jumping. We actually have a trampoline in our backyard because we installed it when the kids were really little. And anytime I can get out there just for a few jumps, or jumping rope, or doing a class that requires you to do a little bit of jumping is a great, like putting a little bit of load on that. And then anything that stimulates your muscle stimulates your bone. It's like pulling, when you flex your muscle and you're like holding a weight, it's pulling on that bone and stimulating those osteoblasts.
Yes.
Which can be harder as you get into older age. And so you want to do things that really are load-bearing, weight-bearing exercises. So weight training, jump training, and then weighted vests, great way to kind of, if you're at home and you don't want to go to the gym, that is a great way for you to get a home workout, is like put on a weighted vest or a rucksack and then do a few lunges, squats. And that can be a really easy way to do that.
Yeah, I heard you say in a podcast once that doing squats every hour is even more beneficial than even going for a 30-minute walk later, right?
Yeah. So this is something I actually use all the time because I have been, like we said, our schedules have been crazy. I've been traveling. So if you're sitting for prolonged periods of time, there is metabolic changes that happen, muscular changes that happen. And what they found is that a lot of people wait till the end of their 8-hour day to go for a workout, maybe an hour workout, maybe you're going for a walk. And they found that actually interrupting your day, even with these mini exercise snacks, is better for you, better for blood sugar and metabolic control than waiting till the end of that 8-hour day. And I think we knew it to be intuitively true, but how many of us, including myself, have a long day of meetings, or, you know, you're on a plane all day and then you're just like, well, I'll just, you know, try to go to the gym at the end of the day, or I'll try to go for a walk at the end of the day. So this forces you to have those mini exercise. So it's just 10 body weight squats every about 45 minutes or so.
Amazing.
Something you could do in the bathroom, something you can do in your office. I've had people say that they've challenged their office mates to do it, you know, throughout the workday. Yeah. It's a really nice way. It's not supposed to be instead of. It's supposed to be in addition to, or on days where you're going to do nothing. This is a great added benefit. And it's even better than like a 30-minute walk at the end of the day.
Wow. Yeah, I think you need a little bit of all of it, right? Like breaking up your sedentary day, going for a walk, going for a workout 3-4 times a week. I think finding that perfect combo.
And like even intermittent fasting, for example, what I said that seems to shock people is like, you don't have to fast every day. You don't have to have the same amount of hours every day. Like, it's not like there's this checkbox that you have to fit into this, you know, intermittent fasting lifestyle. So do sauna sometimes, do intermittent fasting sometimes. Like there's some benefit in doing these things regularly, but it doesn't have to be every day.
Yeah, that's such great advice, and especially for women, right? Because some of the studies are on intermittent fasting for women that do it every single day for long periods of time. They actually have cortisol dysregulation, and some of them actually end up having weight gain because of the stress hormone increasing.
Yeah, it's like anything. So first of all, with intermittent fasting, this is the biggest thing I tell people, is like, make sure you don't make the biggest mistake that people make, which is fasting too late in the day. What you want to do is you want to fast early in the evening, eat an early dinner so that you have a nice break between your last meal and bed. And that way, that intermittent fast is just natural and following circadian rhythms. And so we are meant not to have humongous meals at midnight.
Yeah.
We are meant to eat dinner, 2 to 3 hours before bed. And so when we do that, and it's simple as just moving up your dinner time a little bit and not having too many snacks, like maybe cutting yourself off 2 to 3 hours before bed, and then sleeping through the night, and then not having your breakfast first thing when you roll out of bed. Even if you wait an hour or two, you got a nice, long, intermittent fast. And so I think the biggest mistake is like people think that it's like you're supposed to fast all day long and then eat this humongous dinner. And then your cortisol is high, your metabolic load is too high late in the day. And so you're kind of shortchanging the benefits.
Yeah. The early dinner advice is so critical. And what we do at our family now is our dinner time is 5:30 p.m.
Love
and
it.
Once you get used to that, it becomes like kind of a habit. So even when you're traveling or you're going out, you're like, oh, it's 5:30, I got to get some dinner in.
Yes.
That gives you so much space in the evening, to separate the food from the sleep time, because food is so disruptive to your sleep when it's too close to bedtime.
And it's very hard because I think culturally we tend now with Uber Eats and, all night TV dinners, you can basically eat a huge meal at any time of the day.
For sure. Right.
And that's not necessarily good.
I think the most popular dinner time reservation is 8 p.m. still.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just so close to bedtime that that's what's creating a lot of these circadian rhythm problems.
Or like, for example, if you are doing a social thing, like for me, I always think of, you're trying to balance the social life with eating early and going to bed early. So if I am eating a late dinner, then I'm planning on staying up a little bit later. I still have that little bit break. So if you're eating dinner at 8, but it's a Friday night and you're not going to sleep till midnight, then that could be okay because the benefits of having social connection kind of outweigh the benefits. But you really just want that little bit of break before bed. That's going to be a big benefit.
Yeah. My kind of protocol that's working really well for me is if I have a social obligation with a late dinner, then I'll skip breakfast the next morning.
Yeah.
And then if I have a normal dinner at 5:30, I'll eat breakfast the next morning.
No. And I always notice when people say that they don't eat breakfast, it's fine if you don't want to eat breakfast right away. But you'll notice as you start to move your dinner time up that you kind of are hungry in the morning. Like sometimes, and that's why I say it doesn't have to be every day. Sometimes if I have an early dinner, I'll wake up and I'm like starving and I'll eat before my workout, which is like unheard of for me. But I let myself do that because there's no rules like, oh, you have to eat before, or you can't eat before. Like you can do what actually feels right for you at that moment. And I think that's at least the perimenopausal advice specifically is you really have to listen to your body because those rhythms are kind of telling you something. And if it's like that week before your period and you feel fatigued and you need to eat first thing in the morning, go for it.
Go for it, right? Absolutely. Circling back to the gut-brain connection, can we talk about that a little bit? Like, how are the different ways the gut and the brain are connected?
Oh my gosh, we don't even know all the different ways. So we know that they're connected by the nervous system. We know they're connected by hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers. So the gut can send hormones up to the brain. Neurotransmitters. So dopamine and serotonin are produced in the gut. And then there's like these gut-created mediators like short-chain fatty acids, for example. They go from the gut all over the body, lowering inflammation.
Right.
And so there's so many different ways that the gut and the brain are communicating all day long. It's almost like I equate it to like two generals like holding walkie-talkies and talking to each other all day long about what's going on in each of their kind of areas. And there's so much crosstalk that what you eat influences how you feel and think, and also like what you're thinking and your nervous energy and your stress affects your gut.
Yeah. when you said the nervous system connects the gut and the brain, I think about the vagus nerve, right? And can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think this is a topic that most people don't even think about, is this giant nerve that connects your brain to your gut.
It's a huge nerve. It is something that you can activate. So there's that rest and digest parasympathetic system, and then there's the fight or flight sympathetic system. And as we discussed, most people that are listening or watching can probably relate. We tend to skew on that sympathetic side, especially
all day long, right?
With, news media, life stresses, the way modern world is, we really just tend to be on that sympathetic side. It's like, you feel like you're in danger and in that adrenaline mode. And so what our job is to constantly pull ourselves back into that parasympathetic mode. And that mode is really hard because, one, society does not accept rest and recovery as like a way to live your life. Two, sleep is so shortchanged in our modern society. And I find that sleep is the best way to kind of put yourself back into that parasympathetic. It's kind of like that recovery mode. And then activating your vagus nerve is an amazing way to kind of improve your digestion, put yourself in that rest and digest. I think people can't fully be healthy if they cannot learn to kind of shift into that lower gear. That recovery is so much more important than we talk about.
Yeah. How do you activate your vagus nerve?
Yeah. One easy way that you can do it without anything fancy equipment is humming. And then, so humming, like in yoga, for example, people knew thousands of years ago that when you hum, that vibration kind of activates the vagus nerve and can relax you. So if you see the word Om, that has a hum at the end of it. Right. And so that is a very easy way to do it. And then the exhale, the slow exhale. So when we're breathing and we're in the sympathetic system, we tend to have very shallow, short breaths.
Right.
And so really taking a slow exhale, like a sigh.
Like a sigh, right?
Is a really nice way to shift that and activate that vagus nerve. What's your favorite way?
Both of those ways. Yeah. I also do a lot of breath work exercises. I find that really helps. But it's so important to build this also into your day because humans were not meant to be in sympathetic mode all the time. Like if you think of most of human evolution, the only time you went into sympathetic mode is if you were running out of food or you were being chased by a predator. Yeah. But most of the day, you're just walking around, hanging out, just trying to, find food and berries. And you just did a lot of walking and things were pretty great most of the time, and so humans were built to be mainly in parasympathetic, not in sympathetic. Yeah. And now we've shifted that. So we have to have these techniques. And it's also like just big picture in your life, I feel, right? Like you have to take your vacations, you have to have time for self-care, all of those things.
All of those things. Yeah. Right. I think, I find that most of us, including myself, struggle with that side. No. But the more you do that, the better your life becomes because you just, if you have proper rest and recovery, you work out better. You have better results in work and relationships. Like you need that rest and recovery just as much as you need that, performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a big part of your story, right? Because I'll let you tell the story, but you were always in sympathetic mode when you were in your practice, right?
So I whenever I tell this story, everyone tells me how they felt this way. So many people feel this way, but it's like you're rushing so much all day long. You're always in that mode of like, what do I need to do next? And often when people are talking to you, you don't even really hear them because you're trying to figure out what you need to be doing, where you need to be going. And for me as a young physician, when I was starting my practice, I was a partner. Mm-hmm. I felt like I wasn't good enough as a doctor. I was always trying to do more and more and more. And then I felt like I wasn't doing enough as a mom, and I was always trying to do more and more. Mm-hmm. And then I had my personal goals of fitness and health, and I felt like I was like failing at all of them all at the same time, even though I was working so hard. And what I realized looking back at it is that I was skimping on sleep. And I was using other people's markers of like success as something that was something that I was wanted to attain. And then I was really not understanding that it actually you do need rest and recovery to be better. I just was pushing harder and harder. And it got to a point where one day what happened is I had a really busy day in the clinic, and I was supposed to pick the kids up at 5 o'clock because they had a karate class that ended right at 5. And it was like a family-owned business.
Yeah.
And the lady would like close and lock the center at 5. And so it was like 5 was like the deadline. Like they would be waiting outside. I could just imagine myself if I was late. So I was rushing through a clinic trying to, and you know how medicine is, you're just seeing patients and you're overloaded and overbooked, and you're trying to get through, and something emergency happens. And my partners approached me midday and they said, "Hey, do you mind like staying after for a little bit just to talk about a few things?" And I thought to myself, like, everything in my mind was like, no, you need to go. You need to pick up the kids at 5. But I was just like, sure. Because I didn't feel like I could say no. I felt like I was trying to prove myself. I was trying to do all the things. So as it started to approach 4:30, I was getting closer to the end of the day. They were starting to get ready for the meeting. I was just like panicked. Like my brain was on overdrive because I was like, okay, it's not very far. It's very close, but I would have to leave by 4:50, to get there. And so I was trying to do everything in my power to kind of do this. So while the meeting was going on, at the end of the day, I couldn't even hear what was happening because I was just in my head, like thinking like,
gotta get out of here,
yeah. And you're like, you're listening, but you're not. You're like in your head, and my heart was like beating super fast.
Yeah.
And so the meeting ended, and I was like, oh my God, I have to run. So I literally sprinted out the back door, down the back steps to my car. And I was like, I gotta go. I was like driving as fast as I could. Again, everything was like flung everywhere. I was like, I just need to go and get them. And as I was driving, I was making the last turn kind of into the complex, and I got into a huge car accident, a multi-car accident. And my car was spinning and spinning. Thankfully, it felt like minutes, but it was probably seconds that it hit the divider and like finally stopped spinning. And thankfully, all the airbags deployed, all the windshield was shattered. Everything was crazy. And when I got out of the car, I just kind of wiped everything off. And I opened the door and I got out of the car and I saw a bunch of other cars also crashed. And I was like, first thing that I thought, I was like, oh my God, there, I can see the center. I was like trying to like go towards the center.
Gosh.
And of course, you can't really do that. And I was like hurt and all this stuff. And it turns out that the lady, it had been 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Lady couldn't get in touch with me. My phone was dead. She ended up calling my parents who were on the end. So my parents had already gone there.
Oh, God.
But it was like the wake-up call that I needed. And in retrospect, I'm like, God, I'm glad that it wasn't worse, but it was a wake-up call that I needed. I just was like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. I don't feel like I'm doing enough in any of these areas. I feel like crap. I'm always tired. I'm not in good shape. I'm not doing work that I love. I'm not, the friend, the partner, the mom, the daughter that I want to be. And I need to make a change.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the impetus for all of it.
Yeah. And then from there, you started making changes.
So I started making changes, and then I started to write about it. And that's how I started to blog about it. And I would send those blogs for free to these various sites, and Mind Body Green was the main one. And that's how this all started.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. And seeing now you're in a much better place now.
Yeah. I just learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And I think what I try to share with people is like the old me, I wish I knew these things. And this is what the old me wishes.
Yeah. I think a lot of people listening to this podcast can put themselves in that situation. You're trying to rush through the day. You're not even experiencing life. You're just a to-do list and all these to-do items has hijacked your entire day and your thoughts and all of it, right? And if you're feeling like that and you're listening to this, it's time to make a change, and don't wait for a car accident to make that change, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Like, it's all the things that I wish I knew that I don't want people to get into the place where they're so stuck and so hating themselves in their life, and something really bad has to happen to them to have that wake-up call.
Right.
Like, you can have it now.
Yeah, so true, so true. Well, Dr. Amy Shah, I feel like I've learned so much with you. Every time I talk to you, I learn so much. I can't wait for people to hear this podcast. I feel like your level of advice is so practical. People can really make changes right away. We talked about a lot of simple things that people can do, and I think that even just doing 2 or 3 of these things can make a massive impact, right?
Yeah, thank you for having me, first of all. And yes, I think that's the thing. We can't all have like a 3-hour morning routine.
No.
We need to have incremental things that we can add into our busy lives to actually thrive.
Right. So true. That's great advice. Where can people learn more from you?
Yeah, they can come to amymdwellness.com. That's my website. Dr. Amy Shah is my Instagram and TikTok handle. That's kind of where I hang out.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you have a huge Instagram following and you have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, my podcast is the Save Yourself podcast, which you're going to be a guest on.
Yay.
I'm super excited. And it's really just a kind of longer form content from the things I talk about on social.
I love it. And what are you most excited about coming up?
Oh, I'm really excited about the world shift into health and wellness. I just love that everyone is interested in things that we've always been interested in. I have an upcoming new book on the topic coming out in 2026 that I'm going to be formally announcing soon. Lots of new projects. I'm very excited about the future.
We're in a project together with IM8.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So that's what part of my morning routine every single day. So before I joined the advisory board, I was like, I don't know, I'll try this. I heard, David Beckham was like part of it, and they have these like NASA scientists and Mayo Clinic scientists. So I just started to, maybe 2 weeks, I started to take it every day. And then I was like, oh, and then I kind of forgot about it. I forgot that I was even taking it every day. It was just part of my morning routine. And then a couple of months into it, I was like, you know what? I feel better when I take it. Like, my digestion's better, my energy levels are better. I kind of like miss it if I didn't take it. And so then I decided to join the scientific advisory board.
Yeah, and I've had the same exact experience with it. Like, you have all these like different vitamin powders out there. You wonder if anything's really working. And some of them, if you look at the ingredients, they don't even tell you what's really in it.
Yeah.
And what I love about IM8 is, number one, the science behind it. But number two, you can look at the ingredient list and see exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
And I was able to cut out a lot of the supplements that I take in pill form by just taking this really good tasting powder every morning and just mixing it in my morning water, And now, like you said, it's part of my morning routine as well. And I still take some supplements, but I went down, I think, from like 12 tablets to 6, and it's so much easier,
I know. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
big shout out to them.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining me today, and can't wait to do this again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.